Hello and welcome back to the Not Old Firm YouTube channel. My name is Ben Banks, back with James Black after his hiatus. He comes and goes for this channel now. But unlike Scotland at major tournaments, we will not be coming and going anytime. We're going to be qualifying for all of them going forward.
Bold, mate, bold.
World Cup 2022 qualifying starts tonight. I think it would be fair to say, at least in the support of Scotland, that everybody has one eye on Euro 2020. But if they do have aspirations of going to Qatar next year, they really do need to be picking up pretty much maximum points from these games. Scotland v Austria is tonight as we record this. Israel v Scotland in a team we've never played before on Sunday, before Faroe Islands next Wednesday at Hampden. So a bit of an odd one having the Israel trip in the middle of that. But apart from that, obviously tonight's games against Austria, so that'll be the main focus this one, as well as other bits and bobs ahead of the international break. Austria have got their full complement of players. I think they named us something like 43-man squad because they weren't sure of whether the Bundesliga players were going to get play with them. I think 18 of their last sort of match day squad were made up of these players. And due to Germany's COVID rules, it didn't look like they were going to play. They are going to play, and it makes probably at least a very even game, if not Austria slight favourites.
Yeah, it's a weird one, man. This whole World Cup qualifying campaign's just kind of crept up out of nowhere. I suppose because the Euros aren't until like this summer, rather than having been last summer, it's kind of thrown everything out of kilter a bit. But it feels kind of very, very low key, and I don't know. There's no the same kind of usual buzz that there might be as you go into a new qualifying campaign and everything. But it's three huge games for Scotland. They really need to get 6 points, I think, for the first two to have any hope going to Qatar next December. Next December.
Yeah, that'll be fun with fixture schedule and things like that in the domestic scene. But the Israel game obviously has been proven to not be an easy one. Not that we've played Israel enough. Faroe Islands, I mean, if Scotland lose that, then all hell breaks loose. But I think because of the Euros, at least in the support, there is already one eye on that. But I think if, say, we do maybe only pick up 3 points, I think the Faroe Islands game, unless Hearts v Brora Rangers style shock happens, it's going to be at least 3 points out of 9. But I think if it is just 3 points out of 9, then you're perhaps looking back on it with a wee bit of regret after the Euros. Because I think until the Euros passes, you're not really going to be able to fully focus on this campaign.
If it's 3 points out of 9, we're as well giving up in the World Cup straight away. And to be fair, it's a really weird one because, like as I say, these campaigns normally start after a major tournament. So you're in this weird position where, had you gone into this campaign after the Euros and you come out of this first 3 games with 3 points, there'd maybe be a few kind of twitchy bums looking at, well, is Steve Clarke the right man? But obviously he's going to get a free pass on this one. He could lose all 3 of these games, and he's still going to be the man that leads you to the Euros, despite potentially the World Cup qualifying campaign being dead before we actually get to the Euros. It's just weird, man. COVID's just doing weird shit to football.
Yeah, very weird. In terms of people who've been called up to it, obviously Che Adams is the headline one, scoring goal.
Don't like it, man. Don't like it.
Why?
Because he's there because Scotland qualified for the Euros, and
Don't care.
He can. But is that not a slap in the face? Why was Scotland not good enough for him 12 months ago, 24 months ago?
Do you know that the thing is that...
And we're talking Che Adams here. We're not talking a world beater. We're not talking a guy who's a genuine, bona fide, world-class talent. You're talking a guy who's a fair to middling, mid-table Premier League me.
But I think he rejected Scotland in 2017. I think he was 20. If you haven't checked out our interview with Kevin Wilson, who managed Che Adams at Ilkeston Town, do go and check that out. But he's basically worked his way up from that level to England under 20s, I think it was, about 4 years ago. And I think once he played at that level, he wanted to assess his options. Whether you think that's right or wrong.
He didn't want to assess his options. He wanted to get the call from England.
Yeah, he wanted
I
to.
don't, and that's where my issue is. I have no issue with English-born players playing for Scotland, Irish-born players playing for Scotland, whatever. I couldn't give a shit less. See, if you want to come and play for Scotland, brilliant, great. But they shouldn't be second or third option. That's bullshit. And to do it literally in the build-up to a major tournament, it's no, man. Like,
If you look at it from a, if you look
flip
at
it the other way. See if let's. I'll use Billy Gilmore as an example. Although, as far as no Billy's no eligible for anything else, but let's use Billy Gilmore as an example. So as it sits, if he was eligible to play for England, most of Scottish football has got their hopes hung on Billy Gilmore for the future. How furious would he then be if he decided, you know what, I'm going to go and play for England because they're better than Scotland? Would be furious. So why are we accepting this guy? Because the simple fact is he's coming to Scotland because he is not good enough to play for England. He wanted to play for England. He was not good enough to play for England. So it now becomes any ship in any port in a storm. And it's like, nah, mate, you want to play for England, go be English. Don't wait until you've not got any other options and go, oh, look, Scotland's going to Euros. Let's go play for Scotland. Bullshit.
Yeah, well, it might not be as good as even say Southampton teammate Danny Ings or Harry Kane. It is better than Lawrence Shankland, Ollie McBurney, Oliver Burke, and any striker we have. And if we're going to look at it from a purely football,
but we've been being told for the last 2 years that Lawrence Shankland's the reincarnate. He's the love child of Ali McCoist and fucking eight other world.
He scored 6
goals.
But
now it turns out he's not good enough. We're bringing any old shite in, and it's a slap in the face of the guys who've got you there as well. Where was Shea Adams when Scotland were playing Israel 17 times in a week?
Well, so he's going to play them this week. He's going to be involved to end it. But I think if you look at it from a purely striker point of view, he's a fairly decent striker. He's got 8 goals, 4 assists, I think, in the Premier League this year. Lyndon Dykes has scored 1 goal from open play, and that was last weekend. Kevin Nisbet's scored 1 goal since January, albeit I think his form over the season's been good and merits a call-up. Lawrence Shankland's had a tough first season.
But see, you're picking very arbitrary spells as to when they've scored. Nisbet's, he's done X since January. Dykes has done this all season.
Yeah.
If you compare them over the same thing, Adams might be better over the shorter spell. Has he been any better than Kevin Nisbet over the course of the last season or the course of the last 12 months or a longer
period? When you go into that argument, you then need to consider Che Adams is playing in the Premier League, I think. I don't think he'd be taking away.
So's John Fleck. Where's the clamour for John Fleck to be in the squad?
He is in the squad.
No, but we've never had the whole thing that you throw baby out with the bathwater to get John Fleck into the squad. No, John Fleck only got into the squad because others weren't available.
Well, that segues us in nicely into our next point, I suppose. With midfield, there is a lot of options in there. I think to round off the striker point is football's fickle, and if Che Adams goes and scored 2 goals against Austria the night, then everybody's loving it.
Is Ollie McBurney not playing in the Premier League?
Yes, and he's got 1 goal.
But you said it's because he's playing in the Premier League, it's a higher level.
Aye.
When people were saying Ollie McBurney should play ahead of Lawrence Shankland, the argument wasn't Lawrence Shankland's playing at a lower level, it's Lawrence Shankland scoring goals. Doesn't matter, he's playing in the Championship in Scotland. He's scoring goals.
Those people are not me.
Yo, Ben. Oh, you liar. So, you're lucky I don't have too much time in my hand to go back through clips and to clip you up saying we should play Lawrence Shankland because he's scoring goals and Ollie McBurney isn't, despite Ollie McBurney playing in the Premier League.
They say people change. I have changed my goalposts since Che Adams has been called up. I am willing to shift it.
The tail be wagging the dog here, I believe, Ben.
I seen his goal against Sheffield United. I seen him score for the halfway line against Manchester City. I've seen him score more goals this season than most other Scottish strikers. He'll do for me.
He scored for the halfway line.
If he goes and score, I don't see if there was a full team of English-based players that just decided, you know what, I want, because the way it turns out is that I think most English players have like a Scottish gran or something, vice versa. a Scottish player probably has an English grand, things like that. But if we had a team of 11 English-based players, as long as they're winning, football is very fickle. On the midfield, you're mentioning Fleck and stuff, that's probably the area of the pitch where Scotland's strongest, and you're wanting to move Scott McTominay into there. Would you move McTominay into midfield, or would you keep him in defence?
No, Scott McTominay's not a defender. Can we stop this? We've done it. We've done it 3 or 4 times now. Scott McTominay is not a defender.
I don't think he's a defender, but to his credit, he's actually done not too. The first few games were shaky.
But do you know who else would do great in defence, or who would do not too bad in defence? An actual defender.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is maybe some kind of bold, out of the box strategy here. Play a defender in defence and play midfielders in midfield where they're better.
Yeah.
Especially something like McTominay, because there's no question Scott McTominay's a good player. But he's half the player that he is in midfield when you play him at centre back.
Yeah. I think so.
Especially with Jack out.
Yeah, it's such a top-heavy team, I think if you even, not to go back to strikers, but up front you have got Che Adams, Kevin Nisbet, Lyndon Dykes, players who have been either decent for the national team or have had decent seasons. You've got midfield where you've...
But then he's picking guys in the midfield that aren't having decent seasons.
Well, he did mention that in his presser, that he has been loyal pretty much to the squad that got him there.
Unless you're a striker.
Unless the striker department.
And do you now see where my point is? He's going on about loyalty in one breath and then pissing that away in the other.
To be fair,
where does Callum McGregor's performances merit a place in the Scotland squad?
Some, perhaps not me, but some would argue he's had a decent...
The Celtic fans would argue.
Some.
Celtic fans, Callum, if you're going to pick players on performances, pick players on performances. If you're going to pick players on loyalty, pick players on loyalty. Don't do both and piss in my head and tell me it's raining, which is what Clark's trying to do here.
Well, for a midfield, I think Ryan Gauld should have been in. I thought he merited a place. I think if you look at Scottish midfielders on form, he's been one of the best midfielders. And I know the problem with him is I don't think it's necessarily right. I don't think me or you can claim to have watched many of Ryan Gould's games this season. We've been aware that he's doing well, but I don't want to say out of sight, out of mind a wee bit, but because he's not playing in the Championship, Premier League or the Scottish Premiership, because he's out in Portugal, I suppose Jack Hendry's been called up after his loan spell.
Jack Hendry's had the hype behind him.
But I suppose you could say Ryan Gould's had the hype behind him, but how long ago was that now? 7 or 8 years since the mini Messi stuff and things like that. So
yeah, but in terms of Hendry's had the recent stuff where he's turned his career around in Belgium. Like Gauld, I couldn't say definitively one way or other. I've not watched enough of his games to say whether Jack Hendry's still the same bomb scare that he watched at Celtic. Might be, don't know. There's a couple of decent accounts that sort of follow Scottish players abroad, and they seem to watch most of their games. And by the sounds of it, Jack Hendry's had a good season in Belgium, and Ryan Gould's had an even better one in Portugal, and could arguably be in the team. One's had more write-ups in the Scottish papers for turning things around than the other. Yeah,
it's an odd one. I think Ryan Gauld should have been involved, and then if he wasn't going to be involved, David Turnbull. I think if you're going to include Callum McGregor, I'd say David Turnbull's been Celtic's best player this season and could arguably be ahead of him. So
the thing is, there's a real wacky balance in both midfield and defence. And looking at the squad just now, Armstrong, Christie, Fleck, McGinn, McGregor, McLean, McTominay. I don't know if I've missed anybody that's been called up because of Jack's withdrawal. I don't think I have.
He said when the squad was announced, they basically called up that amount of midfielders so that if Jack did drop out, they were already suitably covered.
So Armstrong's centre midfielder, Chrissy a centre midfielder, Fleck's a centre midfielder, McGinn's a centre midfielder, McGregor a centre midfielder, McLean's a centre midfielder, McTominay's a centre midfielder. Where's your width on that side?
Yeah, I suppose you're thinking the width comes from Stephen O'Donnell at right wing back, and then it's an odd one. The odd one for me is obviously the Robertson Tierney debates rambled on for years now, and Tierney's having.
And when you have those, why is Greg Taylor there? What's the point in taking Greg Taylor?
Like three left backs in a system where you don't really even play a left back.
Not even just in a squad where you have Tierney and Andy Robertson. What's the point in Greg Taylor?
Well, for me, even though I think they should be trying all they can. The problem with Tierney is that even though I think he's perhaps the better left back than Robertson, potentially, at least in terms of if we're even, not to go down this line of argument again, but if you go off Scotland performances, can't remember Andy Robertson's last great performance for Scotland.
I can't remember Kieran Tierney's either, though.
But centre back,
but at left back, where's the superstar left back that both of them apparently are?
Well, I think anybody that's watched the Premier League this season, again,
Scotland don't play in the Premier League, mate.
It goes into this repetitive argument of Scotland.
It's a Darren Fletcher thing all over again.
But I think he maybe deserves a chance at left back to at least show can he play in his natural position for the natural team, because he hasn't had that chance. But he's not going to play there. Well, Andy Robertson's the captain, so I think Kieran Tierney called up as a centre back, hence why Greg Taylor goes as potential replacement for Robertson. So even
then, you're still looking at a squad of Considine, Hanley, Hendry, McKenna, and Palmer as options at centre back. Yeah. Do you still need to throw Tierney as a centre back? Again, there's a complete no balance in that squad whatsoever.
Yeah, goalkeeper as well. It's quite an ageing goalkeeper department. I think John McLaughlin.
Who starts for you? Because if it's Craig Gordon, then I give up.
So Craig Gordon is 38 and is playing in the second tier of Scottish football. He's played quite well. I think he's played really well, and I think he's an international quality goalkeeper. But he is sort of
playing in the Scottish Championship. I'm sorry, but no.
Well, I mean,
no.
You could make. Not to get into that argument again, but David Marshall.
I want to have, because I think it's a very valid argument to have. Scotland's number one is playing in a division with Arbroath.
And with the
greatest respect to Arbroath and Alloa, who I'm going to pick on here a little bit, Scotland's number one should not be playing in a league with part-time footballers. No, and I don't care who it is. There's no qualification to get around this. There's no buts. There's no. At the end of the day, Craig Gordon plays in what is a division which 20% of the clubs in it are part-time clubs.
But
part-time clubs, semi-professional footballers. They aren't even full-time professional footballers.
But we're clambering for Nisbet and Shankland to go in, and when they
Nisbet only on his form in the Premiership, and that when Lawrence Shankland got in the Championship, on this I laughed my tits off because I did not deserve it, because, and I said this at the time, he was scoring goals against painters and plumbers. And I'm sorry, but scoring goals against painters and plumbers does not an international striker make.
Well, to go back to goalkeeper, who's meant to keep out said goals from farmers and plumbers. Got David Marshall's been the number one, obviously, for under Steve Clarke, but he's been injured the last few weeks. I don't think he started maybe the last month or so for Derby County. John McLaughlin's not been number one, not played a lot of football for Rangers.
McLaughlin's not kicked a ball since
Falkirk in
November, December maybe.
Again, I don't know. Not doubting John McLaughlin's a good goalkeeper. He is a very good goalkeeper, but for somebody that's not played football, for me, as I've already said elsewhere, Liam Kelly should be in the squad.
Not after his mistake at the weekend. No, that was shambolic.
Technically, the squad was going to be named before that.
But that's something that is very much in Liam Kelly's locker, always has been.
He just waited until I asked Graham Alexander about this, punted it in the press, punted it on my own Twitter, and then went and done that. That's the reason he did that. But
if I was having to pick a Premiership goalkeeper, it would be Robbie McCrory. And
he's not played enough, and he's not had a great season for Livingston.
I know, and that's what I mean. That kind of shows you where it is in terms of the options that's there. I think between him and Kelly, they're kind of muchness for me.
Max Stryek's been Livingston's number one. Robbie McCrory's a problem.
Aye, but Max Stryek isn't Scottish, so we can't really.
You know, maybe he's got a Scottish grand, but Robbie McCrory, by the looks of it, maybe needs another season in the Championship to fully cement himself.
I think he just needs another season, a team that's not quite as much of, I don't want to say a bomb scare, but a team that, when you watch Livingston or David Martindale, their tactics are essentially just, didn't get beat, guys. Like, there's no shape, there's no tactics, there's nothing, there's no logic, rhyme or reason to what Livingston do. It's just...
It's worked all right.
Play. No, it's not.
Apart from the cup final and stuff, where obviously things went wrong.
Long they went with it, back-to-back wins now? 7, 8 games, is it? 9 maybe?
4 points in the last couple of games, top 6, potential European spot.
They got but that's only been on the back of that one run.
Aye, that's all they need.
Since that bubble burst, it's all went largely how would
we'll see what happens. This is the Scotland. Yes, the Scotland previews turned into our form.
Me on my soapbox.
Yes, but I went through the squad. Austria, predictions for that?
A draw seems a logical result. It depends on kind of how Austria turn up. They've got some very, very good players. David Alaba, I think if he's on form, he's going to destroy Scotland. You imagine Stephen O'Donnell head to head.
Yeah, with David Alaba. Yeah. I mean, if we're punting Liam Kelly into the squad, you could potentially have had 3 of Mullo's defence, technically in the back 6, including the goalkeeper, which would have been quite something for Mullo as a club. I think.
Where are Motherwell sitting in the league again? Remind me.
9th.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless of that, he isn't in the squad. So
that's the defence you want to try and take you to a World Cup.
Yeah, but I think it'll be a draw. I think a draw is probably most logical. Scotland haven't scored all that many goals, and I think people have blanked the last 2 sort of Nations League games from memory that have now meant that Scotland need to go through this group, or otherwise they've not got the security that they've had for the Euros. That's gone, and those games I think were, if it were obviously the Euro qualification overrode it in, rightly so. But those games, I can mind you saying after it were utter shambolic. Basically, they didn't have much joy in any of them. So. Positive mood's probably still going to be there ahead of the Euros, but I think maybe a draw will be likely in this one. Israel game I can see being the same. Those games have been awful to watch, and I can see that being like 0-0 again, if I'm being honest.
Oh wait, so it's Israel that's on Sunday night.
So they're going straight for this game. Night, they're pretty much going straight for this, flying out to Israel, and then playing on the Sunday. So I think that'll be difficult. And then the Faroe Islands game, I think we all know that could be. I think you could see a lot of rotation in that game. If whatever the starting 11 is in Israel, you could maybe see 6 or 7 changes for that against Israel, Faroe Islands, and it would still be comfortable 2 or 3-0. I can see. I think.
Ben, you see, this is the problem with you young ones.
I reckon 5 points out of 9. Don't think that's awful.
I can remember a far better Scotland side than this one, going to the Faroe Islands and coming away with a creditable 2-2 draw.
Faroe Islands have Gunnar Nielsen in goals, potentially. That's all I need to say.
Mate, we could have Craig Gordon in goals.
He's better than Gunnar Nielsen.
Is he though?
Let's not kid ourselves on here. Yeah, I think how is that?
What would you do? Just one last thing with Scotland end this with 0 points. What do you do?
Probably.
Do you start looking beyond Clark for after the Euros?
I don't think so. I think.
So do you write off the World Cup qualifying already?
Some people will. Some people look beyond it, but Clark's got enough credit in the bank, I think, after the Euro qualification. He's the first manager since Scott Brown, regardless of whether you think he's the right man for the job, wrongful man for the job. I think there's very few who think the latter. But even if he gets beat 3-0 in these games, as you say, he's going to lead Scotland to the Euros. And if he manages to get Scotland out that group with England in it, then the World Cup qualifying campaign, well, that's a disappointment. If he has a good Euros, then I think he's got that job for as long as he wants, if I'm being completely honest.
God help us.
And he's obviously been linked with the Celtic job and things like that. It's kind of a weird one. He's sort of... he's ruled that...
I would pay good money to see Steve Clarke as an ex-Celtic manager.
Could think of worse options. But yes, we'll leave it at that. Hope you have enjoyed. Do remember, there'll be potentially, as this goes out, there might be 3 videos on the channel today, because we'll have Scott Brown's interview, not the one coming.
Oh, well, Aberdeen, Ben, Aberdeen.
Yes, not the one coming to Aberdeen, reportedly. The one who has already been at Aberdeen. So don't get confused, but do go and check that out all the same. We'll have a reaction to the Austria game later on tonight as well. So do check that out. And I'm sure, James, you'll be in a colourful mood. What are you going to do if Scotland win? You're going to have to be positive.
I'm regularly positive. I don't do this nonsense happy clapping that we always do at the start of a campaign when we forget how shite we've
fully
been
on
for the
board
last
the
20
happy
years.
clapping bus. We're going to win every game 3-0 and we're going to go to the World Cup in the very morally bankrupt Qatar, which clubs and nations, rightly, Norway took a stand against it. I think they did in their qualifier, saying that's a bit dodgy, FIFA. Probably the right stance. Anyway,
If they want to take a stand against it, withdraw from World Cup qualifying.
Yes.
Put their money where their mouth is, and stop making silly wee pissy displays on the pitch and putting out wee tweets and going, "Oh, look at us, we're so good. We don't want to go to Qatar." See, even the World Cup finals are played in Qatar next winter. I can guarantee you, every single country that qualifies will be there with bells on. And all this human rights stuff will be ignored because football is a merciless business, and international's no different.
Okay, thank you for watching. Until take it easy.